Well, this here behind me car is a 1930 Ford Model A business coupe flavor that I've had in the garage sight unseen. Logbook says it's been off the road for a year. Logbook also says it's got a fresh engine in it. So let's see if we can't change on the Earl and turculize the head bolts a little. See if we can't put this on a 1,000-mile round trip vacation and back. Yep, that sounds like a great idea. Nope, sure doesn't. Defo gonna fail. Appear to have some slight radiator leakage, so we'll just pretend we didn't see that. However, what I did see says V8 on her, so hopes are high, fingers crossed. Take a look under the power burn here, see what she's got. Oh, well, she's got 8 valves, that for sure. I see originalage. Well, filtrage. You don't belong here, get out of here. Yat! Water neck's cracked. Might have something for that in storage. Nope, probably not. Spark may happen there, looks fine. Fuel may happen there too. Yes, yes. Feel the urge yet? Odometer tells me it's right about time. Been about 300 kilometers for the running oil. It's got different flavors and vitamins in it to help the engine get up. However, it won't get it through the day. So we'll just leave that in for a short period. Change it for some proper dinosaur juice. Also, 11,000? 12,000 miles? Could that be original? Nope. Probably not. That pedal wear is more like 1,012,000 miles. Moment of truth. What color will it be? Scheiße.
Genau.
Looking pretty good. We've got a wee bit of deposits on the drain plug. Since they're metallic, I'm just going to guess that that's piston rings wearing in. Clean it up, call it good. Well, the guy went on ahead and installed a little lightage for you. There we go. That's probably no different than what it was before. And you always want to make sure to only reuse these like a bunch of times. There we go. Now these water necks, they got a habit of breaking 62.37% of the time. And if they're not broken already while you install them, it's most likely either the surfaces here aren't flat, which I've filed this one down, and did so with the replacement too. The next thing you can do wrong is install too thick of a gasket in here. They sell thick paper gaskets and even copper ones, composite. They're no good. No gasket at all. Just a slither of a whisk of an idea of silicon. I mean, the surfaces are both flat, so shouldn't need to worry about anything there. With rubber, it's best to use sharp objects, you know, to make it fear you. Same goes with thin-walled cast iron. Need to treat them with threat. You're the boss. Ouch! Ah! That's way too much. Perfect. Despite not matching color, seems to have it where it takes. Cause I don't see no leaks. Beautiful. Alright, we've changed the oil, changed the water neck, changed the coolant. What else? Don't forget the distributor. This here is the rusty old starter motor which I refurbished some videos back, by the way. Anyway, let's see if we can't bring the thunder. Bring it again. Sounds roadworthy to me. I will just snag the belt on here. I wanted to check if the fan blade had an imbalance, but the amount of rattling that you feel is definitely coming from the engine. The first part of the journey led me to Bonn, where I was set to pick up oldtimer friend number 1, Tim. Along the way, the engine started making a noise which I had never heard from it before. Sort of like an erratic clicking and ticking. Then it was there, then it wasn't, as if there was a screw loose somewhere. I pulled over and tried to find the reason. I couldn't pinpoint anything and was actually close before packing everything in and going back home, calling it off. But then I thought to myself, if this is the last trip I was going to do with the car, then so be it. I continued my way to Bonn, and by the time I had arrived there, the noise was gone. None the wiser, the two of us continued to part 2 of our journey, which was in the Pfalz, where we were picking up the third of our oldtimer colleagues, Richard. Having successfully completed the 200-odd kilometer journey, we put Hannah to rest for the night. The following day, I did some minor adjustments to the carburetor and also had a peek at the valves to see if the lash was still set correctly. I found the rattling noise which has been driving me nuts. Can you hear that?
Ich rieche doch Zinnober.
Ja, 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 ja! Oh, hier oben ist ein bisschen fest. So. Ta, 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 ta. That's why I never use gasket sealant on these. Number one, they are sealing up anyways. Number two, this gasket stay intact. Jetzt kriegt die 8 040. Das passt durch. Und die 3, 1, 2, 3 ist ein Einlass, die kriegt 035. Das passt zum Beispiel nicht durch. 1, 2, 1,5. So. This here is my lucky charm, and I keep it in a well-visible spot because Mr. Henry Ford hand-signed this one. So I'm sure with this screw in it, the engine will last forever. Ich krieg die Schraube nicht rein. Was könnte denn da helfen?
Vielleicht der Knippel? Vielleicht der Knarr?
Richard had a little project of his own, so we spent some time tinkering on that too. More of that later, but the coming day we set foot towards the final leg of our journey, Franconia, where we would meet the fourth in our gang, Paul.
Like me, like I like you, we know nobody new will do. It's okay, toots, okay, toots. If you say yes, then I'll say yes. If you say no, then it's no go. It's okay, toots. You know I'm in favor of whatever you do. I tasted the flavor of one kiss, and then I knew it was okay, toots. If you wash dishes, I dry dishes. I dry dishes, I'm ambitious. Okay, toots. Nobody new will do. It's okay, toots. Okay, toots. If you say yes, then I'll say yes. If you say no, then it's no go. It's okay, toots. You know I'm in favor of whatever you do. I tasted the flavor of one kiss, then I knew it was okay, toots. If you wash dishes, I dry dishes. I dry dishes, I'm ambitious. Okay, toots.
Genau.
Knackered from the journey, we didn't do much more than eat and call it a night. Well, today we're doing a bit more of a leisurely day, so I thought I might as well use the opportunity to bring another topic to your attention. I'm sure watching the cars drive along and watch us have fun is entertaining enough in itself, but I also wanted to document a little about how the car behaves, how the engine behaves, and how the entire run-in process is going along. So last video you saw us rudimentarily brake the engine in. We ran it twice for about 10 minutes to get it up to operating temperature in idle, so that we could then re-torque the head nuts after it had cooled down. Then we immediately hit the road. We went downhill first and then along a level stretch for, shall we say, 30 to 50 miles, doing no more than 30 miles an hour. Keeping the throttle very gentle, keeping the ignition timing very conservative, and then it was time for me to hit the country roads to get my car tech inspected, because it's illegal to drive around without inspection here. So then I had to open her up a little bit more. I kept below 40 miles an hour at all times, and again, you know, careful does it, slow acceleration, slow deceleration. Just keep the changes in load as constant as possible. For our trip down into the Pfalz, I stayed at that 40 mile an hour mark, didn't go any faster. Along the Rhine was perfect terrain because it was all level, there were little to no traffic lights or no jams or anything that you had to slow down for, so you could go slow and steady, and just keep the car happy. I noticed that with the fresh engine the temperature was quite at an unusually high level for my experience. It was around the summer average mark pretty much at all times, and once you stopped at, well, what do we have, 25 degrees centigrade, you could see it climb up a little and get into that small circle where, you know, I'm getting a little bit worried, but I didn't manage to cook it at any point. While we were driving along, the temperature did actually reduce itself quite a lot, so now I can drive these 40 miles an hour without the temperature gauge showing anything at all. Only when I stop or climb up a steep hill does it show a little bit, and then of course if you're in a traffic jam with the sun blazing down on you, you can notice it get a little higher. Having arrived here in Bavaria, the terrain got a little bit more hilly. I opened her up a little bit more, which was after, shall we say, 300 miles of driving. I now keep her below 45 miles an hour at most times. The engine behaves very, very well. I notice it freeing up a lot over the time. It has noticeably more power and low-end torque. Many people said that by lightening the flywheel you get rid of a lot of torque, and that might cause you problems getting up hills. Matter of fact, the engine is so much more powerful than it was before I overhauled it. It just keeps on pulling through and pulling through. It's become a torque monster basically. I do no more than 20 miles an hour in second gear just to keep the revs down, and once again, easy does it. I'm trying to keep the load changes as constant as possible, no meshing on the throttle, no sudden acceleration or deceleration, and keep the timing conservative. All the way up for idle, in the middle for speeds below 30 miles an hour. In ranges between 30 and 35, I slowly creep the ignition timing all the way up, and once I exceed 35, then the timing is all the way down, which, as I said before, in this engine now is no more than 28 degrees of advance. That's pretty much all I can say. I thought I was going to be slow and sluggish in this terrain and have problems keeping up with the little TKW because it weighs nothing and has a lot more high revving engine, so it could just speed along while I was chugging downstairs. Not the case. I can push the DKW off the road anytime I want. No.
Der Grabstein, der kommt immer näher.
But I'm surprised at the performance of this thing. And the engine keeps behaving well, it doesn't use any oil, it doesn't smoke. The oil looks clean as the first day. We're now exceeding 500 miles with the fresh engine, and it just keeps getting better and better. I'm hoping for the return, when we've exceeded 1,000 miles of driving, I can open her up to, shall we say, 50 continuously. And once that is done, I would say the engine is completely broken in, and it's time for another oil and filter change. Now let's get on with the show. This day off, if you will, was a great opportunity to check up on the cars. While Richard greased up his wheel bearing and fixed a coolant leak, I took a peek at the rear axles to see if the drums were still tight. Contrary to Les Andrews, by the way, these get torqued down to 75 pound-feet instead of 125. You find these updated torque values on the Vintage Ford forum.
Scheiße. Was war das denn?
Ja, das Auto ist vom Bock gerutscht.
Scheiße. Genau. Nein, es ist leider nicht auf der GoPro. Scheiße. Genau.
Well, I did a bit of Jenga and got the car back on the jack, the wheel back on the drum, and the car back on the road. Time to visit Rothenburg. Somewhere along the way, I decided it would be a good idea to use a field to turn the car around. It wasn't.
Alter, boah! Alter, boah! Scheiße! Woo!
Feel free to play back on that one. You can't see the trench until it's too late. Now, the second time into the trench could have been avoided, but during those few seconds I thought I must have hit a pothole and not a trench. It only occurred to me when it was too late. I hit the brakes for a fraction of a second and then didn't have the momentum to get through the trench. The bumper hit the earth and then I was stuck. Took some manpower to get it back out.
Bereit?
Ja, mehr oder minder.
Aber das kriegen wir hin.
Ja, mal hin, ja.
Ich lasse die Kupplung gerade mal ein bisschen abkühlen.
Ja. Mit der Weste besser. Also.
Bereit?
Ja.
Jawohl! Ihr Ehrenbrudis!
Maschallah!
Maschallah!
Ist das gleich Vorrollen?
Ja, ja.
Halt mal hier fest.
Warte. Oh, Entschuldigung.
Das heißt noch eine.
Boah. Die Lenkung ist so leichtgängig.
After that beating, I of course inspected the underneath of the car. Funnily enough, despite a few pieces of grass and earth, there were no signs of mistreatment whatsoever. I was impressed. Back at our holiday home, we set up fixing the radiogram in the living room, and the coming day we noticed that a very special species of beetles had decided to come land on our cars and then die there. Alright, enough of the lollygagging. We had a great few more days there, but with regards to the time that this video is already running, I'd say we cut that short and fast forward back into the Pfalz, where things get a little bit too complicated to just voice over narrate it. So I'll just let it run and have you watch it.
Und ohne drücken. Geräuscherlebnis.
Great time to test out some freshly baked insiders.
Verdammt, es geht nicht auf.
Oh, da muss eine Spritze Karamba drauf. Scheiße.
Come get together, let the dance floor feel your leather. Step as lightly as a feather. Let yourself go. Let yourself go. Come hit the timber. Loosen up and start to limber. Can't you hear that hot marimba? Let yourself go. Let yourself go. Relax. Let yourself go. Relax. Got yourself tied up in a knot. The night is cold. But the music's hot, so come cuddle closer. Don't you dare to answer no, sir. Butcher, banker, clerk, and grocer. Let yourself go. Whoa. Let yourself go. Let yourself go.
Well, the plan was obviously to get this thing running and driving. Sadly, we experienced some carburetor troubles and couldn't get it to do much more than the occasional pop. Sadly, time was scarce, and so we had to pass on and leave it the way it is.
Ich würde sagen, das wird schon laufen. Da fehlt nur ein Strutzer Karamba. Scheiße, ich kann nicht ernst bleiben.
Well, the official part of the journey is over. The little DKW is back in his garage in the Pfalz. Tim and I, we still got some 200 odd kilometers to do, but I think the moral of this story is already clear. If you want to go to Franconia in a Model A,
Take a DKW.
hey!
But wait! There's more!
On the final stretch home, I helped pull start Tim's Ford Taunus out of hibernation. And after 1,000 miles arrived home and put Hannah to her well-deserved rest. Back from the tour, it's of course time for another service and oil change. We're also going to take a look into the filter. First of all, take a look at the dipstick. This is around 1,000 miles, a little more than that, and it still looks, golden brown, and I'm not used to that at all. Usually after 500 miles my oil would turn black. Also, I haven't added any fluid and it's still just below the full mark. And only a minute amount of some metal shavings on the magnet. I'm still going to call that piston rings, because what else is magnetic in the engine that's going to wear down? Found me another can opener, so now let's open this up and see what's inside. Looks like some oil actually made it into the filter, so yeah, poking the membrane doesn't appear to be necessary. So I've torn the filter paper off so we can read it like a book. It looks mostly clean in here. There is a lot of fluff in here, and when you take a close look at that, then the fluff is shiny metal. That's quite a lot. I don't know if that's just normal for running procedure. For one, I'm glad that that's not in my engine, but in the filter. It's not magnetic. I don't know crap about diagnostics and engines and whatnot, so I'm going to leave that up to you experts. If that's just the normal wear-in fluff that's in here, once again, that's a finger full of it. Well, that concludes this run-in vacation trip and the video in itself. I'll leave the discussion up to you guys, whether the amount of chips I found in the oil filter are to be expected or whether that's just way too much. I'll of course keep monitoring what's happening over time, if it gets less, if it gets more. And yeah, at least we ought to have solved the riddle about whether these partial flow oil filters actually do anything. Well, yes they do. And whether or not you need to cut the membrane open. Turns out you don't have to. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, see you guys next time. Bye!
That's all there is. There isn't any more.